Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're continuing our series on salvaging lithium ion cells, 18650s. And last time we finished with, well, demolishing all the cases from the battery packs and left with this, a whole bunch of battery packs, well, cells packed in packs, but without outer shells. So that's already a great step forward. There are some lithium polymers packs that we won't be using, but today, well, the next step is to actually take these packs apart, extract individual cells, and put them all back in this organized fashion. I did some detective work off camera. You can see some sticky pink notes there. So basically I managed to identify all the cells, as in the models, manufacturer, some parameters, what I could find. Surprisingly enough, I actually managed to get pretty much all of them with high degree of certainty. And that would be useful when we'll try to find out what the capacity deterioration is. All right, so today, again, continue with the cleanup. Now then shells were very different for different packs. Now most of the work here would be relatively the same. So the plan is I'll show maybe one cell how I'm processing this, and the rest is going to be on the time lapse. So let's get going. All right, and we shouldn't need too many tools today. So here's my, container for the cells. It's quite nifty and modular. I can attach in different configurations, so that should be enough to sort out what we have on here. Then primary tool should be those pliers, flat one side. Basically, we're going to be cutting welded tabs and trying to do it carefully. And the remaining burrs or pieces of weld on the terminals, if any, will be able to clean you with the Dremel. Again, there's like the burr, just a little bit to clean up. Or we can just like literally glide it on the file with a few passes. Probably on the negative terminal, because again, we don't want to short the positive and negative on the cell, even though probably most of them are deeply discharged. But yeah, that's just generally not a good idea. Negative terminals are relatively safe as long as you're dealing with a single cell, because that's the negative terminal is the same as the rest of most of the body except the pin on top of the positive terminal. So with that, let's get going. And okay, so let's start with this pack. These are actually Samsung cells, relatively old model, but yeah, Samsung cells are good. So that's one part of the pack. So as you can see, that's 6 cells in the wrap. So let's remove the wrap first. All right, so 6 cells here. Now we'll be removing all the wires that we don't need. And we don't need any of them. Okay, so there is some protective tape on the terminals. And that's basically what we're dealing with here. So these two cells are connected to the tab on that side and on that side as well. Yep. And we don't want them to be connected. So the important part when disassembling the packs, especially if they're relatively new and potentially charged, is to not short the positives and negatives. That's actually relatively easy to do. So it makes sense to start with the negative side. And okay, and yep, I also added some glue in between because why wouldn't they? All right, so that's one single cell with the remainings of the tabs on both terminals. So now what we're going to do is grab it and just roll it like that. Perfect. Actually, in this case, we don't need to post-process it. There are just small little divots on the spot weld parts, but there are no pieces of nickel stripe. All right, and on the other side, same thing. Okay, as you can see here, we're not so lucky, so there's still some left, but I think we'll be able to lift it up. Okay, there are a few pieces that are sticking out. It might be hard to see, but I can feel them. That's not good, but that's actually a perfect case for our file here. So I'll just do literally like that, and that's it. Yep, feels reasonably smooth, and we're all good. So that's one cell. Well, I'll put some tape to repair the jacket. That's just insulation. But apart from that, that's cell number one. And that's basically how we're going to do the rest of the packs. Yeah, I think that makes sense to do it on time lapse because they all going to be looking relatively the same. So let's get going. All right, and that part of the project is finally done. So I extracted all the cells from the packs, and now they're neatly sorted, well, sorted by model and type. Yeah, so that's all what's left from the original package. Let's go around. Look at that. Beautiful. Very satisfying, I have to say. All right, so there are a few things I wanted to mention that obviously you couldn't hear anything with me talking during the time lapse. So there was a lot of damage to the jackets of the cells, or some of them at least. Whether it's due to the excessive amounts of glue in between the cells, or maybe just the deterioration of this jacket material itself. So originally I started to repair the jackets, the small things with just electrical tape, but electrical tape is way too thick. So for certain places that the cells wouldn't fit, with the, plus I mean it just looks fugly and you can see what's underneath. So actually I just switched to the plastic wrap. Again, in most cases, as you can see here, with one exception being those cells, the jackets are mostly intact. There are just some rips where either I was taking them out, or maybe I was trying to separate them from the pack, and yeah, the jacket just rips. So mostly intact. So I just put a few layers of the plastic wrap, and that seems to be fine. Again, like these ones, I completely ripped out the jackets, and yeah. So again, like the jacket is there for insulation, so it doesn't short anything with like the bare metal, and the plastic wrap should do the trick, I would think. Well, we'll find out. Another thing is, okay, so there's a whole bunch of different cells put here on the models. So again, don't worry about the labeling. I'll probably do a summary of what we have here once I'll start to analyze them and try to see if there's any, well, any live ones with the capacities and so on and so forth. That's where I'll put the information on the models and whatnot. There was one pack that actually I left intact, well, in terms of the cells. And the reason being that's the only cells that I can identify here as being high discharge. So most of these cells are regular sort of like 2C variety, meaning that at most they would be able to discharge that 2 times the capacity expressed in milliamp hours. So for instance, if this cell is 2200 milliamp hours, at 2C, that means the maximum it can discharge at about 4.4 amps, which is fine for, you know, like the low power applications. But for things like power tools, if you remember, we had the power tool pack reconstruction recently. You need high discharge cells, so that means the power tools can draw 10, 15, sometimes more amps. So like the regular 2C cells won't do it. For certain power tools, again, like the packs could be used in some low power applications like lights, radios, things like that. That's okay. But for general purpose power tool packs, you need high discharge cells. And this is the only one what I can see here. Interestingly enough, so that's the 10C from what I can see. So I mean 10 times the capacity, the discharge. So that's up to 15 amps of discharge. That's pretty much what you expect to get for power tools. This, I believe this was back from the cordless vacuum, which is again motor driven by the lithium batteries. So that's pretty much what the power tools are. And another nifty thing about this pack is that it's 5 cells, so that means it's 18 volt. And put up in the way exactly as I have it in my Ryobi power tools, power packs. So basically, if I ever need to reconstruct one of the Ryobi packs, or I'm pretty sure most of the power tool packs, I can literally just take this this pack. And another nice thing that I tested the cells briefly. They're almost fully charged. They're all the same, as in there are no outliers. So that's a good pack. And I can just parachute it directly into one of the power tool packs. Just reattach it to the BMS of the Ryobi or whatever the power tool I use, and it should be good to go. So I don't need to do any spot welding, any connections, because it's already here. So I need to do some soldering to the existing tabs, which is a lot easier than doing the proper spot welding. So that's why I keep it like that. I did not deconstruct it, because for high discharge cells, then in all likelihood, I will need to reconstruct it back in exactly the same way as it is already here. So there's that. And then I already showed you that's a bunch of the lithium polymer packs and some primary cells, lithium cells, but they're not rechargeables. I'm not sure what to do with those. I'll test them. And I mean, these ones are nice because they have kind of like proper connectors. Those ones, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll try to disassemble them to see what's inside, or we'll just recycle them. So the next steps on the agenda would be start analyzing what we have here actually, not just in terms of the models, but hey, can we charge any of that? What the capacity is? Well, I mean, if we can charge it at all. Let's see what the tally is. And that would be the next part of the series.